Most people believe staying financially average is caused by lack of intelligence, or bad luck, or the economy. But the real trap is far more psychological than people realize, because most financially average people are not trapped by money itself. They are trapped by invisible mental patterns that quietly control their behavior for decades. And the terrifying part? Most never notice it happening, because the trap feels normal, safe, responsible, even intelligent. One of the biggest psychological traps keeping people financially average is comfort addiction. Not luxury comfort, predictable comfort, a stable paycheck, a familiar routine, a life that feels emotionally safe enough to avoid uncertainty. Now, at first, this sounds reasonable. Humans naturally seek security. The brain wants stability, predictability, protection from chaos. But modern financial systems quietly exploit this instinct, because average people are trained from childhood to prioritize safety over leverage. Go to school, get good grades, find a stable job, avoid mistakes, don't take risks, stay realistic, and slowly. The mind becomes psychologically conditioned to fear uncertainty more than mediocrity. That changes everything, because wealth creation almost always requires temporary discomfort, risk, embarrassment, failure, uncertainty, criticism. But average mindsets become emotionally addicted to avoiding those feelings. So people stay inside environments they secretly hate because familiarity feels safer than transformation. And over enough years, comfort quietly becomes a prison. Another hidden psychological trap is external validation. Many people unconsciously build their entire identity around appearing responsible instead of becoming financially free. They seek approval through predictable behavior, stable jobs, socially accepted choices, safe decisions, not because those paths are always wrong, but because psychologically, humans fear social rejection deeply. People want to look normal, reasonable, safe, and building wealth often requires temporarily looking irrational, starting businesses, creating content, investing aggressively, taking unconventional paths, which means average people often reject opportunities emotionally before logically analyzing them, because the brain asks, what will people think? Not, what could this become over 10 years? That single psychological pattern destroys enormous financial potential. There is another trap almost nobody talks about, the addiction to immediate relief. Financially average people often optimize life around short-term emotional comfort, buying things to feel better, escaping stress through consumption, rewarding themselves constantly after work they hate. And modern society encourages this behavior non-stop. Advertisements, social media, luxury culture, consumer psychology, everything pushes people toward emotional spending, because emotionally reactive consumers are extremely profitable. And once someone becomes psychologically dependent on consumption for emotional relief, long-term wealth becomes much harder to build. Why? Because wealth usually requires delayed gratification, and delayed gratification feels emotionally painful to people conditioned for instant stimulation. This becomes even worse in social media culture. People constantly compare themselves to others online. Luxury vacations, expensive cars, perfect lifestyles, and comparison creates emotional pressure. People start spending money trying to look successful instead of becoming financially strong. That is one of the darkest modern financial traps. Looking rich has become easier than building wealth, and many people unconsciously choose appearance over freedom. Because appearance generates immediate validation, real wealth often grows invisibly for years. Another psychological pattern keeping people financially average is fear of identity change. Most people think they want financial freedom, but psychologically, many are terrified of the transformation wealth requires. Because success changes relationships, friends change, conversations change, habits change, expectations change, and humans are emotionally attached to familiarity, even painful familiarity. Some people subconsciously sabotage financial growth because remaining average feels emotionally safer than becoming different. This is why self-sabotage appears repeatedly when opportunities arise. Procrastination, overthinking, fear, excuses, delay. Not because people are lazy, but because the nervous system often interprets transformation as danger, and perhaps the most dangerous trap of all is the illusion of progress. Modern society allows people to feel productive without creating real leverage. Watching podcasts, reading books, consuming motivational content endlessly, the brain mistakes information consumption for movement. But knowledge without execution changes nothing financially. A person can understand wealth intellectually for decades and still remain financially average forever. Because average financial outcomes are usually not caused by lack of information. They are caused by repeated emotional patterns, comfort over growth, safety over leverage, consumption over ownership, validation over freedom, thinking over execution. And these patterns compound silently over years. That is why many financially average people are not unintelligent at all. They are psychologically conditioned. Conditioned to avoid uncertainty, conditioned to seek comfort, conditioned to prioritize short-term emotional relief, and the system rewards this behavior temporarily, until decades pass. Then suddenly people realize they spent most of their life building survival, instead of building freedom. And perhaps that is the hidden psychological trap keeping people financially average, not lack of intelligence, but a mind trained to seek emotional safety more than long-term liberation.